Welcome back. We're going to draw a caricature of Hillary Clinton today. We are going to draw her with a big head and a little body, so allow about half the space of your page for the head and the other half for the body. And I'm going to block in the form of the head in 3/4 view, sort of like this, with a plane change along the side of the cheek, cranium extending back behind the neck, and the face to the left. Notice that this plane change is about 2/3 of the distance across the overall head. So this is about 2/3, 1/3 relationship. And that is how we are starting. Okay, so we're going to start asking ourselves questions about Hillary Clinton's head. First question, of course, is, are her eyes centered on her head? And I would say the answer to that question is yes. So we're going to make a line for the eyes, centered with a very slight decline going to the left. The next question we might ask is her eye spacing normal? And I would say it's perfectly normal. She could fit about an eye and a quarter in between her eyes. So we're going to leave that alone too. So since we're seeing nothing unusual about eye placement or spacing, we're going to draw that pretty realistically. So we're going to ask ourselves, where is this break here? Where's the bridge of the nose? And you notice that it's about 1/4 of the way, no, it's more like 1/5 of the way across the head. So if we've got an interval here that's this big, this is about the same interval, this is about the same interval, and this and that. So it's about 1/5 of the way across here. So let's just mark these fifths. Notice we've got 1 unit, 2 units. This unit is just inside that plane change, 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that clear to everyone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got to fit this eye inside this first fifth. And so it's going to fit sort of like this. And then the next eye is going to be fitting way out here. Wait a second. 1, 2. So the next eye is here. Notice I'm not drawing the eye shape yet. I'm just sort of marking where the eyes are going to go. And then here's that plane change. Let's get a few of our other major proportions nailed down. So we've got the eyebrows up here. We've got the nose halfway between the eyebrows and the bottom of the chin. So that's going to be here, halfway. And we've got the mouth 1/3 of the way down. So all her major proportions are completely normal. Obviously, she's not a completely normal looking person, so So what makes her unique is going to be evident, I think, when we start doing the individual features. So let's just block all the big placements in. And you'll notice that this eye here ends up being pretty much in the center of the head. So everyone check that distance. Make sure, this is one thing you want to actually measure. Measure from here to here and from here to here. Make sure that this forward eye is sort of centered on the head. So we're going to go right in now to the individual features. And let's see how close I can get here. Okay. So her eye in this photograph, and we're going to try to exaggerate some things here. So her eyes are very round and wide open. And a couple of you have already remarked that she looks a little crazy. And you should know by now why she looks crazy. It's because we can basically see the top of her iris. Anytime that the iris is not covered on top by the lid, it creates a crazy look. So I'm going to show even more of the top of the iris. That's my first little exaggeration. And one important thing not to neglect is this surface here. This is where the white of the eye ends, and that's where the lash line is out here. So we're making the eyes a little rounder than they are. And I also see this kind of bottom lid sagging a little, so I'm going to exaggerate that too. I'm going to make that angle just a little steeper, and she's got sort of a pouch under her eye. I'm going to exaggerate that pouch, and those are elements of the caricature. She's got a little wrinkling above the upper lid. I'm going to bring that out. And her brow ridge is very flat, so we're going to just flatten that out even a little more. So we end up with something like this. It's a pretty subtle caricature so far. Let's see. We'll see if we can find anything we can go a little harder on. I'm going to say that her irises are pretty light, so we're going to leave them. Barely going to shade that. It seems to me like the bridge of her nose is very narrow, so I'm going to make it a little narrower. And notice I'm using a broken line to show this plane change. But her nostrils give the appearance of being a little bit flared. So we're going to exaggerate the flaring of the nostrils a little bit. Notice this nostril on the far side is really tiny. Then the tip of the nose hooks under, and then we're going to make this nostril a little bigger than it appears. The combination of the flaring of the nostrils and the visible iris is what gives her such a kind of a manic look, like a look of manic indignation. And she's got a little shallow cheekbone here. Okay, so at this point in my drawing, I really have no idea if this is going to look like Hillary Clinton. I'm getting a little concerned, but we shall see. Might not be uploading this one. Okay, so her lips are, we call that pursed. It's another thing that's contributing to her affect, is that her lips are tightly pursed. They're like squeezed together. So that kind of straightens out the Cupid's bow. So we're going to go straight through here. Her lips are pretty normal thickness, so we're not going to change much about them. And maybe you know what jowls are. Jowls are this kind of fullness that happens at the outside corner of the mouth. You see that fullness right there? It's starting to hang down a little. So we're gonna give her a little extra jowl and see how that works. This drawing is just terrifying, but I'm going to hold judgment until I've drawn the other eye, and we'll see what happens. This eye, again, notice that her eyelid kind of disappears underneath this flap of hanging skin. And we're going to, again, exaggerate the kind of roundness of her eye on this side, and I'm going to make the iris a little bit small to show the craziness. And the thing we're exaggerating here is the way this skin is like pulling down over the eye and merging with this pouch. Again, I'm using a broken line to show this eye bag. it's important to just do your first draft of a caricature before you try to assess, whether you're getting a likeness or not. Okay, her eyebrows are sort of thin. They give her a slightly worried look. Now, here's an opportunity to do something important. What I'm seeing here is there's like a fullness to the cheek here. You see what I'm talking about? So I'm going to try to show that with a little bit of very subtle shading work. I'm trying to shade underneath this form. And around, here's the back of it along, this is that plane change we identified early at the beginning of the drawing. And we should always look for a mirroring form on the other side. And what I'm seeing is that this fullness of the cheek sort of creates actually like it's not the jowl, it's like this little cheek fullness here, and then it transitions into the jowl. And her lower lip sort of protrudes a little bit. So we're going to do a little shading underneath like that. There's a little fold right at the corner of the mouth. And very normal proportions. It's hard to know what to do here. We got pretty normal size, little round chin. And we've got these little, this skin you might describe as crepey. We've got a lot of little tiny skin folds all gathered up underneath the throat. Okay, now let's take a look at the overall head and see if we can So we do have a sort of a prominence of the cheekbone on this side, and this little plane change in between the cheek and the cheekbone. See what I just did? This sort of little bit of shading here, which is answered on this side by this. There's like a real separation of these three forms. The jowl, the cheek, and the cheekbone are all distinct forms. You see that? that feels important to me. And we could share some of your drawings today with my YouTube audience if you want. Okay. I'm just going to start blocking in the hair because the hair also feels important. Definitely, I'm going to make it a little bigger than it is. Look at that. See how just putting this little curve of the hair behind her cheek helped the likeness a lot? Like she's really identifiable partly just because of her hair. I didn't talk about her forehead. I'm saying that her forehead is sort of on the high side, so I might have left a little extra space. And the ear. And don't draw a hard jawline. You notice that the jowl is sort of creating this uneven shadow edge, and then there are some skin folds way down here. Okay, so it feels to me now like I think I've sort of given her a little too much space between her eyes. Remember I said she had normal eye spacing? I've given her extra eye spacing. So watch what I do here. I'm not asking you to do the same thing, but we're going to experiment with a slightly tighter eye spacing and an even narrower nose bridge and see what happens. I know you're not supposed to make corrections when you do these YouTube videos, but I'm showing you the whole process here, including trial and error, because there's always a lot of trial and error involved in a caricature, unless you're at Six Flags. So what this has just turned into is a lesson on just how important eye spacing is, because I can suddenly recognize a lot more Hillary Clinton in this drawing than I could a second ago, and the answer was just moving that eye in towards the other one. It's really hard to see a likeness if the eye spacing is wrong. Okay. So this, remember we said this was the plane change to the side of the head, and I'm gonna just, what I probably should have done right in the beginning is just apply a first shading to this whole region. And I'm gonna bring this hairline in a little closer to that plane change up top. Back out again. See if I'm getting sort of the overall feel of the head shape. Feels like it could be a little smaller on this back of the cranium, and then it sort of balloons outward more. There's a lot of volume. So I'm going to try adding a tiny body now to make the world realize that this is indeed supposed to be a caricature. So she's famous for her pantsuits. So you'll notice that the mouth, the microphone is overlapping the face in the photograph, but we're giving her tiny body, so we're going to give her a smaller microphone. And we're going to give her a tiny little hand. We don't have a lot of material to work with for the body in this photograph, so I'm just going to invent this sort of cocky, like hand on hip pose. Trying to keep the two hands in the same scale. And I haven't really drawn many pantsuits, but I assume that they have pants. So we are going to draw some pants and some heels. So I'm going to give her pantsuit some big buttons, and we're going to shade this shadow edge where the jacket overlaps the pants, and we're going to put a little bit of shade a little bit where the legs meet, shade the microphone, and I'm feeling like just to contrast with her sort of angry expression, it might be funny to just have some helium balloons like floating down from the ceiling. And notice that the same light source that's illuminating her is illuminating the balloons. And then the question always becomes, you know, if I showed this drawing to someone who didn't know who I was trying to draw and hadn't seen the photograph, would they recognize this to be Hillary Clinton? I'm hoping so. Notice I keep pulling this forehead back. She's got a high forehead, but it's not a steep forehead. It's a sort of shallow. And then this hair just like flips out away from it. And there we have it. That's my version of Hillary Clinton. Thanks for watching.